Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with a Bible study. And as Jason mentioned, you want to take any questions from anybody that was here that had questions over the weekend. And of course, we'll be back tonight. Also have plenty of time for questions and answers tonight. But just wanted to just go a little deeper into one of the topics we started touching on last night. And this is the whole idea of what's happening to the genome. Okay, so the genome, and this could be all of the DNA and all of the animals, all of life on Earth. Well, what we're seeing from true science is that it's degrading, and that's exactly what we would expect. You think about, you have about 6,000 years ago, the original perfect creation, and God put all of the physical, all of the information for all the physical characteristics of all the life that we see on Earth today in that original creation. Well, after Adam sinned, you have mutations start occurring, and mutation is just a change to that DNA, a change to that physical information, and then you also have natural selection, of course, going on. Where now, say there was a mutation and it caused say it caused an animal to be born, say born blind. Well, typically that animal's not going to survive, and so natural selection again, would cause that animal to die. It's a very kind of morbid topic, but that's really what we see going on. But over time, the genome just continues to degrade, and so it's been about 6,000 years. There's studies done now by secular scientists saying that the human fitness, the fitness of humans. They'll say it's degrading about 1 to 5% per generation. Okay, so this is really, it's kind of, again, I don't want to say morbid, but it is kind of eye-opening. It's what we would expect. It's what we are seeing. Now, of course, it's totally the opposite of evolution. Evolution would say, we have these random changes, and then natural selection, well, that's going to make things better. But we've never seen that. We've never seen new genetic information created by mutations and natural selection. And we've studied everything. There's whole universities dedicated to trying to find evidence that information has been created. There was I think it was Michigan State maybe did a study. They studied like 40,000 generations of bacteria, doing all kinds of things just in the bacteria to see if they could get new genetic information created. They couldn't. Okay, so everything we would expect from information theory, everything we see scientifically shows us that the information in the genome is degrading, that we're losing information. In other words, we're doing the opposite of evolution, but that's what we would expect. And so that's why we did the analogy with the automobile last night. Again, if you were to think of a perfect automobile, write a manual for making that automobile, and then make random changes to that manual. Well, if you, say I think we used 100 words, make 1,000 copies of the manual, change 100 words in each manual, different words, all random, make 1,500 automobiles, keep the 500, or get rid of the 500 you don't like, keep the 1,000 you like. The manuals that you made, the 1,000 automobiles you kept with, go ahead and go ahead and make 100 more changes, 100 more words in those manuals. And of course, when you start thinking about that, it's almost, I guess, easier to visualize. The genome can be kind of mysterious, but when you just start visualizing that, well, if you did that 100 times, you'll have this manual for manufacturing a car that's had 10,000 words changed in it. And you might have 10,000 different words changed in each manual, but each manual would have 10,000 words changed in it. Well, can you imagine that? Odds are you're not going to make a car. And that's exactly what we expect from information theory, that you have what they call error catastrophe. In other words, you just can't randomly change words. Even if you only keep the cars you really like and you get rid of the ones you don't, that's just slowing down the rate of degeneration. But what's going to happen is eventually you'll have error catastrophe. There wouldn't be a single manual left that would make a car. And so, but I was thinking, well, most people don't make cars, so what I do want you to do, this kind of homework assignment over next year or two. Next time you buy a piece of furniture and it gives you the instructions for putting the furniture together, because as you guys know, you can fit like you know, I don't know, a full china cabinet down to a box about this tall and this long, you know. And so it's just before you put it together, just go change a few hundred words in the manual and then put it together. See if it comes out better. Yeah, I mean, just you know, of course it's not going to come out better. So, so the reason I do all this is, as Christians, we know none of this matters. In other words, I have 100% been talking about the physical body, and as we also talked about, you know, our physical bodies is nothing compared to our spirits. And when I say nothing, it's literally the longest physical life we could have on Earth. You know, 969 years. Say we decide we're going to tie Methuselah. You know, it's not really up to us, but okay, we're going to do 969 years on Earth. That's zero compared to eternity. And so there's no need to focus on the physical. There's no need to. We use our physical bodies. We use you know, what God's given us to glorify Him, to serve Him. But it's to lead people to the truth. I mean, we need to go into the world and preach the gospel. We need to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. We need to love our neighbors as ourselves. Those are all spiritual things. We all have different ways that we're most effective at doing that. I always think it was just God's given us different interests and different talents. You know, if I tried to use art to evangelize, that'd be horrible. I mean, for everybody. So I mean, it's not. So I mean, because that's not one of my interests. But for other people, that is their interest. And you say, wow, you know, just from the drawings or the songs that were written, beautiful songs that were written. I couldn't write a song for you know, and it's but so everybody has different talents, and we use those to glorify God. But the focus has to be on the spiritual. Now, where this is, and I always like to, I'm a very try to be optimistic, silver lining kind of person. This is going to become more and more an issue because I think it was about 2 months ago, Richard Dawkins broached the subject of eugenics again, and he said, well, of course eugenics would work on humans. And then, of course, he backtracked right away. You know, he's, of course, a very leading atheist, but he's just kind of planting that seed out there. And then, of course, Adolf Hitler believed in eugenics, and he was going to create the master race, the Aryan race. And so you're starting to have this, you know, the atheists, the you know, basically non-Christians, well, they see what's happening in the genome also. And so it's either to promote atheism or because they're genuinely scared, you know, because they see this physical degradation. For whatever reason, there's going to become this push for, again, what was known as eugenics, where you, in effect, what Hitler was doing is just kill people that he considered to have inferior genetics. And I'm not sure where Dawkins is coming from, because he knows better. I mean, you don't improve things with eugenics, even though he claimed you did. And we can talk, you know, more about that also. Real quickly, okay, I can breed a poodle from a, you know, like this, the original, the pair of dogs came off the ark. So much genetic information in that pair of dogs. Of course, that's why it's so important that God brought the animals to Noah. So it'd be the right animals there with the right genome. I mean, the real diverse genome, whatever genome God wanted, apparently it was very diverse. So you could breed poodles. You know, we developed poodles from that pair of dogs. And we know that from genetics. So that's like eugenics. You know, eugenics was they took that pair of dogs and I decided, or somebody decided poodles, that's the answer. You know, poodles are the superior breed of dog. Well, that would be eugenics, where you would take these wolves and you breed poodles. Well, first of all, it's a loss of genetic information. So it has nothing to do with, because you can't take a poodle and get back to those two dogs. Because the way you breed a poodle, or any breed of dog, is get rid of genetic information. You get rid of any genetic information that is not poodle. You know, in other words, makes it, you know, big or long or whatever. So it's the opposite of eugenics, but that's what Dawkins was trying to say, that, well, just like you can breed dogs, you know, you can breed humans. Well, you see that or you can do the same thing, but you start seeing the problem that, you know, who decides that a poodle's better than a wolf? Well, if the world's ruled by poodles, they decide they're superior. So, I mean, so who decided that the Germans, the Aryan race, was superior to all the races? Well, it was the person that happened to be in charge of, you know, what he considered that. And so this whole idea of eugenics, it's coming back. And I don't know how else to phrase it now. The way it's most visible, likely, is about 5 years ago, they came up with a technique for testing the DNA of a baby. So an unborn baby, the mother now, it used to be very hard to figure out learn much about the unborn baby. It was a little bit invasive. Now they take a blood sample from the mother. And from that mother's blood sample, they can figure out the genome of the baby. So it's a very simple test. And you think, like any other technology, wow, that could do a lot of good. You know, if the baby might be going to have some medical problems, you can be prepared for those problems. You can probably, we're getting to a point now where it might be able to even help the baby in utero. Like any technology, a lot of potential for good, but unfortunately, like any technology, a lot of potential for evil. And so what happened is, I think now there's 8 to 10 countries that are having the mothers tested, and if the baby, they for a reason they picked on Down syndrome, they focused in on Down syndrome, and if they think the baby might have Down syndrome, they put tremendous pressure on the mother to kill the baby. And so there was a article, this came out about 2 years ago, and it's just almost sickening. Of course, the media was all over this, how great it was. And so an article came out that Iceland and Denmark had apparently were claiming, hey, how do they phrase it? There have been no Down syndrome babies born in our country, or it's almost like they act like they cured Down syndrome. And all they'd effectively done, apparently in that year, is they have all of the expectant mothers get their blood tested, and if they thought the baby might have Down syndrome, they would just put huge pressure on them to get an abortion. And I think just everything from just almost again sickening the type of pressure that we put on them. We actually had a missionary couple that we support in New Zealand that this was even before these tests, but they suspected their unborn daughter was going to have Down syndrome, and they said the pressure from the New Zealand government to kill their unborn baby was just incredible. Well, of course they didn't, and and they were obviously finding the way baby's born totally healthy, and so it's so that's happening. So what I'm going to show, this is a big prelude. This is going to be important because when we're evangelizing, it will be very graphic, which makes it hard to talk about, but a very graphic opportunity to tell people why we need to be focused on the spiritual. We need to be focused on eternity. We shouldn't be just focusing on the physical. And so listen to this testimony. This is an individual, Frank Stevens. He has Down syndrome, and he had to testify in front of a committee. This testimony was probably a couple months after this big. It was almost this attempt to convince the U.S. that, since, wow, look at all these other countries are doing this great thing, so we should do it. Well, of course, it was to kill babies with Down syndrome. And one of the points he makes, and he says it very clearly, but it's you'll hear him say canary, and I think he says it's the canary in the eugenics coal mine. And what he's saying is, okay, so if we start saying that we're going to look for genetic differences in unborn babies and we're going to kill them, then where do you stop? In other words, if you pick on one genetic difference, well, why not 10? Why not 100? Why not 1,000? And so again, you can see the path of this. And unfortunately, again, a lot of the world is kind of appears to be going down this path. So I'll go ahead and play the video, and hopefully we can get the sound to work also. If not, I think we'll probably hear it just off the laptop if it's. Oh yeah, it works. Okay. Okay, so it's too deafening. Close your ears, and I'll try to turn it down in a couple seconds, but otherwise.
Amen. And members of the committee.
Wait, you're okay?
Just so there is no confusion, let me say that I am not a research scientist. However, no one knows more about life with Down syndrome than I do. Whatever you learn today, please remember this. I am a man with Down syndrome, and my life is worth living. Sadly, across the world, a notion is being sold that maybe we don't need research concerning Down syndrome. Some people say prenatal screens will identify Down syndrome in the womb, and those pregnancies will just be terminated. It's hard for me to sit here and say those words. I completely understand that the people pushing this particular final solution are saying that people like me should not exist. That view is deeply prejudiced by an outdated idea of life with Down syndrome. Seriously, I have a great life. I have lectured at universities, acted in an award-winning film and an Emmy-winning TV show, and spoken to thousands of young people about the value of inclusion in making America great. I have been to the White House twice, and I didn't have to jump the fence either time. Seriously, I don't feel I should have to justify my existence. But to those who question the value of people with Down syndrome, I would make 3 points. First, we are a medical gift to society, a blueprint for medical research into cancer, Alzheimer's, and immune system disorders. Second, we are an unusually powerful source of happiness. A Harvard-based study has discovered that people with Down syndrome, as well as their parents and siblings, are happier than society at large. Surely happiness is worth something. Finally, we are the canary in the eugenics coal mine. We are giving the world a chance to think about the ethics of choosing which humans get a chance at life. So we are helping to defeat cancer and Alzheimer's, and we make the world a happier place. Is there really no place for us in the world? Is there really no place for us in the NIH?
All right, so that's that was he said it a lot better than I could ever say it. But that's again something we'll run into now. Going on this particular theme, and then I'll stop in a few minutes so we have time for questions. So I think we've all heard about the cancel culture, right? If someone disagrees with somebody, they'll try to do whatever they can to either just cancel any opportunity they have to speak or make their opinion, or it'll be a personal attack, or they'll try to pretend they never existed. So again, I always like to look for silver linings. So I'm wondering, why have we not canceled Charles Darwin? And this is if I can figure out how to make it work. Let's see. Okay, so this is a quote from Charles Darwin. It's published in The Descent of Man. Of course, they left it in all their reprints, but if you go up to even some of your really politically correct universities, got to go to MIT for grad school, and up at MIT it has all these great scientists, Newton, Galileo. They have them all in this big courtyard, and then they got Charles Darwin's name up there also. And you think, well, he wasn't really a scientist. He was a theologian, and he came up with a theory that we kind of all know is wrong now. So why is he almost, I say deified here? If you look at, of course, you go into museums, you go into, all kinds of places. They're always talking about Darwin. Well, here's a quote from him, and I'll apologize in advance. This is very eloquent. You notice a lot of atheists they are very eloquent, and they use that to try to persuade people. In other words, they use that to try to get people to think, wow, that guy's such a great speaker, and not really listening to the words that are being said. And so this is a case, again, you read Darwin's books, no one can argue he is he's very literary, a lot of literary talent. But again, you have to think about what he's really saying and realize that it makes no sense. And this is a classic example. So this is in Descent of Man. He says that some future period, not very distant, as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. At the same time, the anthropomorphous apes will no doubt be exterminated. And of course, all this is wrong, because that's not happening. But anyway, but then this is the really extremely racist part. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider, for it will intervene between men in a more civilized state, as we may hope, even than the Caucasians. Okay, so wow, even than the Caucasians, and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of as now between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla. Okay, so think of what he just said. First of all, he's saying that some races, what he called races, and again, if you've been to the Creation Museum, I think they do an excellent job pointing out there's no such thing as races. We're all a human race. There might be, difference in the amount of melanin that we have, or how much melanin is expressed, but it's not, just no such thing as races. But he basically just called one race superior and another, what he called races, basically, really close to the gorilla. Okay, so you think of, and again, I would say, current events, which we try to use to evangelize, use to get people to focus on the spiritual. Everything that's going on right now, how come this hasn't been pointed out about Darwin? Why aren't we going back and scrubbing all of Darwin's teachings and saying, hey, we don't teach this? Because someone looked at it, we had this idea of, and I think it was the 1870s, he said that maybe in some warm little pond, with the right kind of salts, life just made itself. Just scientifically ridiculous. But we still teach basically the same thing. Life just made itself. Why is that? So again, it's why would we believe avowed racist who's published the fact that he's a racist? Oh, and you read those bottom two quotes. I didn't want to get myself in too much trouble. He was like a little bit of a sexist also. I'll read them to you just for those of you back. This is what he said. He says, the average mental power in man must be above that of woman. And he doesn't, it's not just this random statement. He spends like 5 pages trying to lay this whole thing out. Maybe it's just 3 pages, depending on what version you get. And he also says that thus man has ultimately become superior to woman in poetry, strength, voice, etc. So to me, it's a real, it just shows how much, talked about the first night, false religions, and how dominant they can become in a society. So when you had, Jezebel and, the prophets of Baal and Asherah, and they literally convinced people to carve idols out of wood, cut the log in 2, cook dinner over half of it, warm yourself up over half of it, the other half bow down and worship. Apparently, people had gotten brainwashed into doing that. And so for whatever reason, we've been brainwashed into thinking, over millions of years that, just randomly changing our genomes and then using natural selection, that's going to make things better. Well, it goes against common sense, but it's also obviously not what we're seeing scientifically. We got brainwashed into thinking life could just make itself. But that atheism, I guess you'd say, that false religion is so powerful that it's one of its biggest proponents, one of its biggest promoters. He's even been shielded from all this other stuff that's going on. I mean, I'll just be blunt. I mean, here we're free to just bash George Washington, or anybody else like that, and just criticize him. And hey, and I'm not saying he wasn't human. I mean, he's human. He has flaws, but man, we just nail him that. But here's a guy that we've let his teaching into all of our schools, all of our, universities, museums, magazines. His philosophies just pervade our society. And he's just right out there in writing, in a book, one of the most racist, sexist person you'll ever come across. So again, I'll just make that as an observation, but it should just show us I guess you say, the power of the false religion, that no one has called this out yet. And it's not like no one knows about it. It's, right there,
Didn't they make like Darwin Awards?
Oh yeah, we had Darwin Day. We spent several $100 million of taxpayer money on the Darwin exhibit at the Smithsonian. I think it was can't remember, it was his 150th. It had been like 150th anniversary of, I can't remember his birth, or the 100th of the publishing of Origin of Species. Maybe the 150th of the publishing of Origin of Species or something. So yeah, it was. He's just celebrated all over the place. So it's. And again, I just point out the irony. I'm not in favor of going back to someone that lived, anybody that lived 150, 200 years ago and trying to, attack their character. But on the other hand, since that seems to be something that's being done now, just the question we should all ask ourselves: why is it being done to all these other people and not, not the founder of I won't call him the founder, because atheism's probably been around, since near the creation, but just the I guess I'd say like the chief promoter, one of the people that really was effective in getting it to take root in Western societies.
It seems like it's just going to happen. I sit at home and I watch and I think it's just going to happen. What's happening now?
Yeah.
I think to myself, well, if I was younger, I would protest what's going on. Like that right there. I'd get out and say, well, did you know Darwin thought this?
Yeah.
Because when I was in school, my mother-in-law, what was my mother-in-law? She was my teacher, and she had to teach, that Darwin, and she told us this is just a theory.
Right.
A theory is not a fact.
Yeah.
And then she taught, creation.
Yeah.
And she taught us,
And
creation.
it really doesn't even qualify as a theory anymore, because a theory, you're supposed to have a little bit of evidence,
Well,
sure to make me true. But
what
anyway,
I was told-
I'm just saying.
What I was told
Even
now
calling
that
it a
they
theory
teach
is
that
teaching.
it's a fact.
Yeah, they use a fact, but
They
if
teach
they're
that
being correct, it
this
shouldn't even
is
be.
a fact.
It should be just some ancient idea, like the idea of cutting a log in two and bowing down, carving into an idol. That's how it should be taught. It can be taught about as, can you believe people used to believe this type of stuff? But it doesn't even qualify as a theory, but now it's like it's a fact. Yeah.
See, I'm easy.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't know what I was going to say.
No, that's perfect.
You're saying it's just gonna happen.
Yeah, it seems like it's just happening.
Yeah.
That there's no way you can keep it from happening.
So, okay, so mine is whoever they are, that's what they want us to think.
Well,
And so it might be happening, but I know I can talk to people. We can all talk to people. We know people we run into. We have opportunities. God gives us opportunities. So that's my excuse for a lot of times. I'm totally happy going days without watching the news. Because if it just starts to demoralize me, okay, so supposedly this is happening here and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, whatever, but I'm here and I know I can do something about that. And I can talk to this person and I can communicate with that person. And so that's, that's just opinion, but we can't let ourselves get demoralized because of what, you pop on the TV and it says something going on over here, like, oh, they're just going to do this. Well, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm going to, I can influence this and do that.
Well, the best thing to do is turn off that TV.
Right.
Because when I get so down, I think, oh my goodness, what's happening here?
Yeah.
But then I turn off the TV and it's not happening here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I should be able to quote Philippians 4:8. I don't have it memorized yet, but whatever pure, whatever is right, whatever. If someone wants to read it, it's just, that's what we meditate on, that's what we focus on. And you're right, if I turn on TV, and it drives me nuts. Okay, so obviously, I used to fly a bunch for work, and I probably will be flying a bunch for work. And the worst part about travel, it's not the boarding process, it's not TSA, it's the fact that there's a certain network that's on air in all of the airports. And so literally every airport I go through, I know where I can find the zone where I don't have to listen to that. And so there'll be all these people huddled together because, so it's but yeah, because exactly, it's just depressing, it's just irritating, so.
Are you, with NASA enough to know, is there 7 suns and 7 planets? Do you know that answer?
So, with, NASA, I mean, there's just, but when they teach about the solar system's correct. Of course, now they say there's just 8 planets, and then there's, people will fight about anything. We talk about also, I don't know if we got to the deprivation of purpose and stuff, so there's huge fights about whether or not Pluto is a planet, and it's kind of fun, but I don't think I want to spend years and years, So anyway, so right now I think we're down to 8 planets because they kicked Pluto out. We might move back up to 9 next year, depends on who wins the fight. But yeah, it's 8 planets around the sun. Now, there's some really good videos, and we can get, if you guys are interested in radio set, it's what you aren't being told about astronomy. And it was a atheist and has a master's, I can't remember if it's physics or astronomy. He worked for the Air Force, and so he's really sharp, really good presenter. But he just points out, all the things that we aren't being told about astronomy. But his point is, it's not so much, you have the sun and you have the 8 planets and the distances are right, no world speed, all that stuff's right. But when they start saying, okay, now here's how it just all happened randomly. I mean, it's just nonsense across the board. But he does a great job just laying out, okay, here's why this is nonsense. And the funniest one I think he points out is it's amazing how many times we need a collision. And the reason you use a collision is I can pretend anything at all happens in a collision, right? I can say, and so there's one, I think, I can't remember, it's one of the planets or something. You need to have like 5, collisions just to try to make this work. Well, he does a really good job. So that, if you guys want, you can send that up. It's Mike Saris.
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
I need to explain to you why I asked you that.
Oh, okay, sure.
He was taking care of Donnie Miller. He couldn't see to cook.
Okay.
And couldn't dip his food because he couldn't see and it would miss the bowl.
Oh, okay.
That I was there. So it was hot that night, and I took a nighttime walk, and this aircraft went over and evidently came down and landed. And this guy was walking me and told me, he said, you knew good and well we had 7 planets and 7 suns with life on it. And I thought, I did not know that.
Huh.
I really hadn't studied that question.
Yeah.
My other question, had people really been taken, or is that just a movie?
That's just a movie.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you
Yep.
so much. I'll sleep better now.
Okay, yeah.
Because they say they're coming out of aircraft and taking the juice off the power. I hear this out there where I'm at.
Okay.
It's in Greene County. And they'll swear to you that those planes or crafts are taking the juice and making their electric bill go up, so I'm having to hear that.
Okay, yeah,
So
just
I'll leave you with that, and we'll
wow.
pray about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. And wow, if you I know it sounds strange, but try to if there's any way to turn that into a Bible study, and I wouldn't even know where to start. But just but it's that's a unique opportunity you have. So. All right, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the dinosaur question because that always comes up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
How come anytime any evidence for humans and dinosaurs coexisting comes up, there is I don't know how to say that, a fight basically to disprove it? Like when we find a picture on a wall that was drawn that's extremely accurate, that was before we discovered them. Why is there always such a push to disprove that humans and dinosaurs coexisted?
Yeah, that's what I can't figure out completely why, because we find if it's just the fossil record, you'll notice that yeah, like, look at the fossils, say like coelacanths were supposed to be extinct 65 million years ago, and then they started, I think, I've heard different stories, but they found them, they were being sold in fish markets in Indonesia, and then they got curious and they went diving, and they found these whole schools of coelacanths. There's the Wallaby pine in Australia that was supposed to be extinct 140 million years ago, and they find whole groves of them now. So I always wonder if, well, so here's what I would say would happen is, if we found say dinosaurs in the Congo, which isn't unreasonable. I mean, it's unreasonable from what we've been brainwashed, but just thinking about it, okay, there's parts of the earth that are so remote. I literally think it would make a bunch of headlines for 2 or 3 days. There'd be some great new zoos opening up, and then everybody would just move on. I don't think it would change everybody's opinion about God or creation or evolution. So that's why I don't know why there's such a fight, because I just think if we found, say you found there's a lot, and it's just a lot of people will say that they're like, say there's a apatosaurus or some some kind of an apatosaurus, just a sauropod or something in that type of animal still living in the Congo. I think if we found that, it would just be, oh, we were wrong. We thought they went extinct 67 million years ago. They didn't. And then they just move on, because that's basically what they had to do with coelacanths. That's what they dealt with Wallaby pines. They've done that with all kinds of things. That, and their whole basis is just, you see in the fossil record, generally, that humans are above the dinosaurs. But that's just, when the habitats were destroyed, people were clever. They were probably trying to build rafts and boats, things. Reptiles sink when they drown. Humans float. Okay, this is about the most morbid Bible study I think I've ever done. But anyway, so you have all these factors, that explain why the fossil record appears the way it does, and then when you start looking at things like fossil graveyards and bent strata, that's proof that it was laid down during a flood. It had to be laid down rapidly for all that to have occurred. So we don't see a lot of. And then every now and then you will see that there's humans and dinosaurs together in the fossil record, and they'll immediately say that was a, I can't remember what they call it, but they're basically saying, there was, that the human fossils, had to be ejected down into the, the dinosaur layer, and they'll come up with some explanation there.
It's a collision.
Yeah, something, another collision, So they, try to explain all that away, but I'm still stuck on exactly what you said. At some point, the evidence will become so overwhelming that they'll just make the switch really quick. In other words, they'll say, "Oh, okay, I guess there are still dinosaurs alive," and then they'll just move on to something else, some other distraction. So, because there is so much evidence that dinosaurs lived with humans, and really even up to 1,000 years ago. I'm trying to remember some of the newest carvings or artifacts. So, but anyway, good question. I think it's for whatever reason they try to get, dinosaurs are how you, different theories, dinosaurs are how you get 5-year-olds to start thinking about evolution, to start thinking about 65 million years old or billions of years old. So it is a way to lead young children. I won't take a show of hands, but that was the first book I ever pretended to read, was a book about dinosaurs. The reason I say pretended to read it, I was so fascinated with dinosaurs that I had adults read it to me until I had the whole book memorized, and I could pretend I was reading it. So, so it's all kinds of different reasons. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
In Job, it talks about the description of what sounds like a brontosaurus that can walk through the flooded Jordan without being afraid of it, and the Leviathan. So I've always taught my kids that dinosaurs lived. I says, you also look at those knives with them long poles. Why do they have them for? When they can just slash at each other with a sword, at humans. But they got them long poles. I says, that's a slave dragons, which is actually dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, you look at all the dragon legends. There's I think every culture has I always careful to use the word every, but I've heard there's like 200 cultures. None of them would have communicated with each other until fairly recently, at least to our knowledge. They obviously did dabble and biblically, but beyond that, and they'll talk about dragons. They all fit the same basic description. You look at the Chinese zodiac. Why would you have 12 real animals and then a dragon if the dragon wasn't real? You can't say, well, that proves it, but they got 12 real animals. You might say real, their animals exist today. Well, when they wrote that, why would they just make something up that, oh, by the way, all these other cultures that they supposedly had never communicated with also made up things that were very similar to that. And then same with the flood legend. Yeah, they call them flood legends. Every culture talks about a flood. And then if you get to go to the Ark today, there is a really good exhibit on the flood legends, and it talks about how we know that the Bible is the correct version, everything from the dimensions given for the Ark to other things about the discussion, and the others are just taken from either taken from the Bible or they're just, it's really just the biblical. The flood happened, there was an Ark, and then Moses recorded it accurately, and all the other cultures, they knew there was a flood, they knew there was an Ark, they knew generally what had happened, but it just got just, I don't know what you call it, corrupted over the centuries. So yeah, it's just so consistent. So anyways, so I guess the great questions, great discussion. I look forward to more tonight. We'll stay as late as anybody likes to talk. Tonight, some more questions, and then, but again, I guess just this morning, maybe a good way to think about this. There's, always look at things as an opportunity. All of the stuff that's going on with just in the country the last few months, as Christians, don't let it demoralize us. Just let's look at it as, okay, how, it's happening, and I'm afraid there's nothing I'm going to do about it, the big it. So what can I do individually to try to evangelize? And that's a combination of, we need to encourage each other. We got to really keep each other encouraged, because different people are going to be struggling at different levels. Everything we can, encourage other Christians, and then go out and evangelize. And just talk to people that aren't Christians. That people might, people that this might be the opportunity. This might be the time they'll finally sit down and study the Bible with us. So this might be a time they'll come to church with us. And so just look for that. And if we all do the best we can on an individual level, then it will have an effect. But again, I also want to say, this congregation, you guys are always so encouraging to us, and so really appreciate the encouragement that you give us whenever we're able to visit. But that's really important also. So anyway, I'll stop. You said I ad-lib. So